Hi, I'm Ryan Szymanski, curator for Battleship New Jersey Museum and Memorial, and today we're going to talk about Operation Magic Carpet. This was the American effort at the end of World War II to bring as many service members home as possible. By the end of World War II, the United States had approximately 14 million men and women in uniform around the world. They had spent close to 4 years transporting these personnel all over the world to combat zones. When the war ended, everybody wanted their families home. Some people didn't get to come home right away, such as my grandfather, who was left in the Philippines for about 2 years after the war, because we had to occupy and rebuild many of the countries that had been invaded.
In January 1943, the late President Roosevelt and Premier Churchill met in Casablanca. There they pronounced the formula of unconditional surrender for the Axis powers. In Europe, that formula has now been fulfilled. The Allied force, which invaded Europe on June 6, 1944, has, with its great Russian allies and forces advancing from the south, utterly defeated the Germans by land, sea, and air.
So, a point system was determined to figure out who gets priority in coming home. Again, there was about a 4-year period that we're shipping people all over the world, and now, between September 1945 when the war ends, everybody wants their loved ones home by Christmas. And of course, that's not possible. There just isn't the shipping that exists, even with all the wartime construction. So, a point system is developed based on the amount of time in uniform and the amount of combat different sailors have experienced. My grandfather was still in the troop ship on the way to the front when the war ended, so he had very few points, hence being left in the Philippines for 2 years as part of the occupation. Other folks had, say, served on Battleship New Jersey from when she enters the war zone in February of '44 all the way through the end of the war. So those folks got priority in coming home first. Like we've said, there just were not enough troop ships to do this in a timely manner. Over the course of a number of years, we could certainly easily do it. So, the US military reverted to the same idea they had used at the end of World War I, which is using your active warships as they have to cycle back and forth from home ports for major yard periods and things like that to transport additional sailors. At the end of the day, Operation Magic Carpet involved some 370 ships that were able to transport 8 million service members home. This was everyone from prisoners of war that had been liberated to soldiers who had just gotten there on the front. And that's one of the jobs of Battleship New Jersey. Immediately post-war, she was the flagship of 5th Fleet, which took over the occupation of Japan. As 5th Fleet flagship, she remained in Japanese waters for a couple of months after the war ended. And then in 1946, she rotates back home to the United States. And so there is an amount of shuffling of her crew. The flag staff comes off of her and goes on another ship. Some crew members that do not have that many points, guys that had been replacements over the course of the war, get sent to other ships that are staying there. And then other folks from the Army, Marine Corps, the Army Air Corps, and other Navy ships get rotated on for their transportation back home to the mainland U.S. To do this, the battleship had to accommodate more passengers than she was designed to handle. Fortunately, there were a couple of features built into the ship that allowed her to accomplish this. Unlike some submarines, Battleship New Jersey has enough berths for every crew member. So there are already enough beds on board. Those beds are relatively flat racks suspended by chains. So it's fairly easy to change up how many of those racks are in a level. When you've got a small crew in peacetime, you might only have 3 there and everybody has plenty of room. In wartime, you might add a 4th or a 5th bed there, and now suddenly there isn't enough room for people to turn over. During Operation Magic Carpet, you might add even more beds like that. Another thing that they did, Battleship New Jersey was actually built with hammock hooks, and her crew was still issued hammocks in boot camp. So many of the crew could have slung hammocks here in crew's mess, where we found one of these existing hammock hooks. During the day, when mess hours are in operations, they trice up their hammocks and they stow them somewhere else. At night, when the mess decks are closed, the tables and chairs fold up, they can be stored in the overheads, and then there's room to sling the hammocks. Another thing that they did on New Jersey and many other ships that participated in Magic Carpet is the US military had tons of collapsible folding cots that had been sent to the front lines with troops. Well, these cots are then put on these Navy ships, and again, they fold up, so during the day they can be taken and stowed somewhere, and then at night they can be brought out. So now you've got guys in hammocks hanging up high, and cots for folks on the decks. Personally, I think Operation Magic Carpet is an amazing name for a transportation operation like this. What do you think is the best code name for an operation? Let us know in the comment section down below. I also, of course, am partial to hailstone in sinking the Japanese fleet of truck. But let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Battleship New Jersey receives operating support from the New Jersey Department of State, also from a number of other businesses and private individuals like yourselves. I really appreciate your support, and there's a link in the description below where you can continue to donate to support the museum and our channel. You can also support us by liking, sharing, and subscribing so more people find out about the museum. Thanks for watching.